In this hour, we have important analysis and necessary fact correction and checking of the president's address from the Oval Office tonight. And even though it was empty in terms of any new comments by the president or any news made by the president, it was an extraordinary event in and of itself, and it must be analyzed in terms of what it means to our politics and our governing. We will also consider the speeches made in response to the president's address tonight by Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Democratic Leader of the Senate Chuck Schumer. We will be joined by Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen and Congressman Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. We will be joined by a former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement to help us fact-check the president's speech. And we will be joined by a panel of analysts who have seen and analyzed many presidential addresses from the Oval Office, but none quite like this. In the president's 9.5-minute speech tonight, he managed to say not one new thing that he hasn't said before. It was as if, after watching Senator Elizabeth Warren make her first presidential campaign speeches in Iowa this weekend, the president decided to make his first presidential reelection campaign speech from the Oval Office tonight. Before making that speech today, the president's campaign sent out a fraudulent email to Trump supporters saying, "Friend, I will be addressing the nation tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the humanitarian and national security crisis on our southern border. We need to raise $500,000 in one day. I want to know everyone who stood with me when it mattered most, so I've asked my team to send me a list of every American patriot who donates to the official Secure the Border Fund. Please make a special contribution of $5 by 9 p.m. Eastern Time to our official Secure the Border Fund to have your name sent to me after my speech." That was all a lie. In the finer print of the email, it says the contributions are to the Trump Make America Great Again Committee. That is the president's reelection committee. The president lied to his supporters in that email today, telling them that their contribution would be to an official Secure the Border Fund. Immediately after the speech, the president then sent out another fundraising email saying, "Friend, President Trump just finished his speech addressing our national security crisis on the southern border and explaining why he will not cave to the Democrats. We sent him a list of all patriots who donated to our official Secure the Border Fund, and he noticed your name wasn't on the list. Since you've been such a strong supporter and one of our greatest advocates for the wall, we have decided to extend your deadline to get on the list." And that is what the president's request for network broadcast time tonight was all about. He used it to raise money for his reelection campaign, pretending to his supporters that the money they would contribute would be used to secure the border. And he did not say one new thing in that speech that he read from that teleprompter in the Oval Office tonight. Here is the essence of the president's speech.
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. As part of an overall approach to border security, law enforcement professionals have requested $5.7 billion for a physical barrier. At the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting. I have invited congressional leadership to the White House tomorrow to get this done.
Leading off our discussion now, Steve Schmidt, a former Republican strategist and an MSNBC political analyst. Steve, many reasons why I want you to lead off tonight, but as a former presidential campaign strategist, I don't know if you had the feeling I did when I saw the president complete his speech tonight, but I believed I was watching the first Trump nationally televised re-election campaign speech.
I think you're certainly right about that, Lawrence. I was struck, though, by the venue, the Oval Office, and I thought about FDR and Churchill in the early hours of the Second World War, in that space, inches from where Trump addressed the nation, plotting to save democracy and Western civilization. And you consider that speech, what a powerful argument it makes against the theory of evolution, as we look at the continuing debasement of the office of the presidency of the United States. We saw from Trump today the typical lying, the racial demagoguery, the nonsense, the spinning of crises out of whole cloth. But what was most apparent is the degree to which he appears to be an utterly defeated and broken man, somebody who feels the walls closing in on him. It was a low-energy speech, and I suspect the political consequence of it will be that Republicans are going to crack. They're going to take a walk in a serious way for the first time during the Trump presidency. They're going to start to lose their fear of him. What they saw in 2018 was 40 Republicans lose their seats. They saw the House flip to Democratic control, and the map in 2020 is a map that is very favorable to the Democrats, unlike this map in 2018. So this is a disaster. Of course, Trump claimed full credit for it, celebrated it, said he would be proud of the shutdown. And so we see now Republicans living with the consequences of having an inept, lying, incompetent, racially demagogic president talking about this issue. And last thing, Lawrence, there is a humanitarian crisis at the border. We have children in internment camps, and we have two minor children, the last one, a 7-year-old little girl who died in the custody of federal authorities of the government of the United States. It stains our national honor, and it disgraces this administration.
Steve, your reaction to the president using tonight's network preemption of entertainment programming to basically launch a speech that was bookended by fundraising appeals, fundraising during the day saying, we desperately need your contribution by 9 p.m. That's the deadline. And then, of course, after the speech, telling the very same people out there who had not yet contributed that we're going to extend the deadline for you. That struck me as classic Trump salesmanship.
Of course, you described them as supporters earlier, Lawrence, and I don't mean to quibble, but they're less supporters than they are marks. I mean, the only thing that was missing from the emails was that, hey, I'll throw in a case of Trump wine and a couple of Trump steaks and a master's degree from Trump University. This is a con man at work. And what we're seeing here is that the wizard has been exposed. At rally after rally, what did he say? Many billions of times. The Mexicans would pay for the wall. Where are the pesos? He's talking about $5 billion when he told the American people over and over again that there would be a wall paid for by Mexico. There is no wall. There will never be a wall. No wall will ever be funded, and he is denied this central victory against all the racial demagoguery we saw from the moment he descended the escalator at Trump Tower. It's all becoming undone, and that desperation, I think, was on full display today. And of all the things you could say about Trump until tonight, the one thing you really couldn't say was that he's boring. He was just boring tonight. The shtick is getting old. It was, to some degree, like the episode when Fonzie jumped the shark tonight, coining that famous phraseology. I think tonight was a speech where Trump jumped the shark.
Steve, I need to hear more from you as a Republican expert about the possible movements in the Senate on this. We've seen Senator Lisa Murkowski now defect from the Trump side of this. She has now joined, so that there are officially 3 Republican senators who have publicly said they want to go forward the way Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi want to go forward. How long will it take for more to join them?
I don't think very long. There's no upside to this. I think that a lot of the senators, a lot of the surviving Republican members of Congress watched a lot of their colleagues go over the cliff like lemmings to painful and agonizing political deaths. I think a lot of these incumbents looking ahead to 2020, looking at the news that broke today, for example, with collusion between the Russians and the campaign, which becomes more and more apparent every day. I think that if you were looking at this from an investment perspective, I think increasingly Republican senators are going to say, let's short the Trump stock. We've lashed ourselves to the mast here. How do we cut the ropes? How do we get out of this? And so I don't think it's going to be too many more days, not too many more days after the first missed paycheck before you start to see the real cleaving of Republican support away from Trump. This won't last, I suspect, too much longer because Republicans, so long as the Democratic leadership holds the line, they will defect and they will join the Democrats. They will reopen the government. And at that point, what will become clear is that even the Republican minority in the House, the Republican majority in the Senate, will have joined every world leader, most of the American people, as a group who do not take this man seriously at all. They look at him as a joke, a clown, and a farce. When you look at everybody from the Prime Minister of Turkey to the Canadian Prime Minister to the British Prime Minister, the list of people who both fear Trump and take him seriously is getting smaller and smaller every day.
Steve Schmidt, thank you very much for leading us off tonight. Really appreciate it.